leave your ego at the door. We're all trying to get you out there to move away from, I need to play double X, I need to play X, I need to play this, I need to play that. Not at all.
The difference is, this is a much, much, much stiffer shaft.
Someone who's maybe lacks a bit of mobility, this is going to give them energy. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're here at the KBS Experience. I'm with Dave Anderson, also known to you guys as Big Wave Dave. He does all the fittings here. We're talking about iron shafts. This is going to be shafts for dummies. We're even going to throw in some woods, so stay tuned, hit that subscribe. Two different types of players out there, two different fitters that have worked with all of them. Between us, we should be able to bring you absolutely everything when it comes to golf shafts and that daunting experience to getting the perfect shaft for your game and what it looks like. I've worked with a lot of tour players, very fortunate to have been in that situation, but you get a baked product. You get a player that knows what they like and like what they know. Now, one of the things that I think Dave is great at, if you do happen to come and experience a fitting with him, is often guiding the player through, right? It's a very different experience. When you get an amateur, they are looking to you to like, where do I go?
The thing I see, and I think you've seen with better players, is they want to feel, and you give them that and then you build around it. With the regular golfer, a lot of times I'm giving them a feel. I'm teaching them what the feel is.
So when it comes to golf shafts and it comes to weights, there's some golden rules that definitely are a very overview basic that I've lent on over time. As I mentioned, you get on tour and people really don't move out of the family of golf shaft that they like. By that, I mean, they don't come off the weight, they don't come off the bend profile, and they don't come off how that shaft is designed to flex and move and torque for them. So a rule of thumb, and it's very general, and Dave's gonna expand on this for us, but heavier generally means lower ball flight, less turn to the left for the right-handed golfer. That's generally the rule. So if you've got more speed, you'd go into heavier, or I would base it, if I'm fitting amateurs, sometimes on time playing the game, their input when it comes to them trying to direct the fit, where are they going with that, and also what age are they? If someone's grown up playing blades, and even as far back, there's still guys who come and see me that have had persimmon, they're gonna want heavy, you know what I mean? But I know you've got a different opinion on this.
Well, what we see in the regular golfer in the fitting bay is they often don't know what their feel is. They're not coming from a background of growing up, learning to do it one way and getting very good at doing it that one way. You really start to play with the weight of the shaft is one real big thing of finding, do they like light or do they like heavy? And oftentimes it's not them liking it, it's more showing up in the numbers of a full swing to show what is actually working and how their swing works. What's their tempo and what's their rhythm? What kind of release do they have on the golf club? They don't know. Oftentimes tour players have a little bit more of an idea, and that's why the shafts work quicker through the fitting process. But when we go into the different flexes and the weights, it's often very different based on how the golfer moves the club.
In a golfer's journey, when is the time to come and see you to have this experience? When should they visit KBS Experience and get these answers?
I think there's three important times that you should get fit in your career if you're not a pro golfer. The first time you should get fit is when you're starting to swing the club. When you're starting to swing the club, we need to at least get you in the right range of shaft and right range of club heads. If you're a big, brawny, played baseball player your whole life, probably an off-the-rack, stock, stiff set of clubs isn't gonna fit you well. So there's a little bit of a small fitting that you can do right there. Most of the golfers that come here are the guys that are maybe in that range of breaking 90. They're ready to move up into a little bit better golf. They're trying to get their equipment fine-tuned so it helps them and pushes them forward in their golf career. And then that third time that you wanna really get fit is when you're breaking 80, you want to try and get down to scratch. We can really get in and do some fine tuning, maybe a little bit more of the style that you do than I do on the everyday basis.
If you see someone who is 6'4", tall, plays an inch over maybe, because arms are, proportional, so they've got to go inch over. Do you then, and I'm asking this because this is something we fought with on tour a lot, do you then immediately go for a lighter golf shaft, stiff and light? to make up for the excessive swing weight being balance point?
I will concede it sometimes, but I don't give too much to it as far as the regular golfer, because oftentimes I'm already in a lighter shaft for that person compared to a tour player.
Okay, and why is that?
Just because they don't have the control of their swing. Oftentimes if you get a shaft that's too heavy for a golfer, and this is especially true with juniors, too heavy for a golfer can really start to throw their swing in some funny directions.
It's funny you mention it because juniors is a huge one for me. Just done a whole program with TaylorMade on this, that junior golf shafts, junior golf clubs, too long, too heavy, ruins the golf swing.
With juniors, I'm not so concerned on too long. The too heavy part is the one thing that kills a junior swing.
So I think this is a great pivot point and entry point for our Max HL, which is a new product from KBS that I do want to talk about. And we've got about 4 golf shafts that we're going to cover specifically. Remember, KBS offers a huge range of golf shafts. I'm kind of picking my favorite 4 to go off with here. So junior, slower speed, this new Max HL would be where we'd go.
Yeah,
right?
We've had a lot of success with it. When you see a junior and they're starting to develop more speed than their strength can handle is a big thing, because you've got to be able to give them something that can hold up swing speed wise but can't get too heavy.
Maybe I should be playing the Max HL because I got more speed than I can handle.
It's true.
It's true, he says. Okay, go on.
But we've got our Max HL, and this one shaft I've had a lot of success with juniors. It's the 45 gram stiff flex. Now,
so the weight is down.
The weight is
45
down.
grams. Now, 45 grams doesn't mean if I take this and bang it on a scale, it's 45 grams, right? It's in that region, but I think people get hooked on, oh, well, if it's a 45, it's 45.
Yeah,
no, right?
If you cut this down to a 3-wood length, it's going to be less than 45 grams. So the 45 grams is the range.
Hopefully I'm asking good dummies questions for you, because this is golf shaft.
So yeah, don't get too 100% tied on that number being the exact number. It really depends on how you cut up the shaft, which is a great question.
So how do you make, you've got this listed as S, how do you make a 45 R for regular? Obviously that means stiff, but how do you change the actual flex profile?
So with this shaft, and actually we do our 40 gram is our senior A flex. Our 42 gram is the regular flex, and the 45 is the stiff flex.
So for KBS, by moving the weight slightly, which is going to be more fiber wraps within the golf shaft, if it's graphite, is going to change the profile.
Now, please understand that when we say stiff flex compared to our 60 gram stiff flex TD shaft, this is going to be a softer shaft. Stiff flex doesn't just perfectly mean everything's the exact same stiffness.
So more weight generally means it's going to play stronger.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you.
So that's what we're doing. In the scale of the Max HL shaft, our 40 gram is our senior flex, our 42 gram is our regular, and our 45 is our stiff. Again, this would be on the very, very light, soft edge of a stiff flex scale.
Okay, so for someone who's looking for, if it's a junior wants a bit more control because they've got speed, or if it is a lady or a senior golfer or someone who's regular, maybe lacks a bit of mobility, this is going to give them energy.
Yeah, just think of that person that, if you're doing the club fitting side of it, you're looking at the person who just can't handle a ton of weight, but has a little bit more speed that they generate.
Now let's get into this golf shafts I've been playing. I know from my clip data, I'm pretty into these. I'm gonna hit one for you just because of how into it I am, and I haven't hit a golf shot for about 30 seconds, so I'm getting withdrawals. But this is the Tour V 110. Now, I know there's some tour boys out there using this much heavier than me. Does that mean this is nowhere near what they play, or how can I relate to that? Because sometimes we want to.
Anytime you see a shaft in our lineup, whether it's Tour V, Tour, S-Taper, it doesn't matter if it's the light version, the regular version, or the Tour Specs version, they're the same profile shaft. And when we talk about profile of a shaft, we're simply talking about where the stiffness is in the shaft. The stiffness in a tour shaft is very much in the grip, the handle section. The stiffness in our C-taper shaft is very much in the tip section.
So what is that going to give you? So when you're in a shop asking, if someone's talking about the bend profile being high versus low, or the stiff point, or the feel being high versus low? What does that give you?
Sure. So I always say the club fitting playbook would tell you something that's stiffer in the handle and softer in the tip section is going to be something that's a little higher launching and higher spinning.
I'm glad I've read that book because I'm on the same page.
Something that's stiffer in the tip section is going to be lower launching and lower spinning.
Okay.
Now, it's not always true when you get down into a fitting and you get in there with a golfer, how they release the club, what their tempo is, their timing. All these things can change that, but kind of the general 80-20 rule is stiff in the grip. If it's soft in the tip section, it's going to be higher launching, higher spinning.
So ultimately, that point that Dave's made there is massive, because that's why these fitting centers, that's why Dave's here, that's why I'm here, that's why they make a difference. Just because the profile of something is what it is on the internet doesn't mean it's going to play the same way. Because you get some players who release the club differently. We've just been talking this morning about extension, early extending, which is me, for example. But how I come through the turf is going to change. And we actually had that experience on how I went through a fitting here and ended up coming back to something that was lighter, and you can see when you look at it, the step profile is a little different to maybe the next product that we can talk about, which before we get into C-Taper, well no, let's go C-Taper. Very sexy golf shaft from you guys, massively used on tour.
Absolutely, it's probably one of our more popular shafts on tour. We see a lot of players on tour like it because it has that very firm tip section.
Players on tour like it because it's got a matte finish.
Yeah, well, that's true.
A little finish, the brush.
The finish is very nice to it. But the one thing we see is a lot of tour players almost like a little bit harsher feeling because it feels like control to them.
Yeah.
If it feels loose and wobbly, they don't like it because it feels like they're not controlling it very well.
Yeah.
So definitely a little bit more swing, aggressive swing styles prefer this kind of shaft.
What is your lightest shaft in play on the tour?
We do have some 115 gram stuff played, so the C-Taper comes in a light version.
So still playing the harsh feel, but
the harsh feel tip, but our C-Taper light extra stiff is 115 grams, where our C-Taper, the regular shaft, is 130 grams.
Yes. So I see a lot of your 130s in this on. You get a few S pluses on at the 125.
Yeah,
right?
we see on the tour, it's actually kind of an even split between all of the brands of shafts KBS makes.
Yeah.
We see a split between 125 and 130 grams of about 50-50. You'd think the tour player would naturally gravitate right to the 130 grams, but a lot of the guys understand that is the stiffest, that is the meanest, that is the angriest shaft.
And you see a change in spin rate when you see that bottom corner there, or is it player dependent? If someone goes for an angry 130 C-Taper, what difference would you see in key numbers here?
The one thing I see, let's go back to the regular golfer. When I get a shaft like the C-Taper 130 and it's way too stiff for him, if I would put that in, oftentimes what we see is the kind of the back of your brain realizes it, and you end up throwing and flipping the club, and you hit the C-Taper 130X, which is supposed to be our lowest launching, lowest spinning shaft. You end up hitting this high little spinny floater because you've thrown it because it's way, way too stiff for you.
It's interesting you say that, because we would see that on tour occasionally. When someone was playing something that was too stiff, you'd just get an anomaly. And some players, it's rare, but it would be one every sort of season.
I'm the exact golfer of in our lineup. I actually also play the Tour V in the 120 version. And when I've tried the C-Taper shaft in my own swing, I tend to throw it. I tend to spin it more.
Yeah.
So that's why the Tour V out of the KBS lineup fits me.
Yeah.
All of our shafts are great, but when you come to a fitting for me, I tell you, one KBS shaft is great for you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the difference of what we're trying to do.
So let's talk about that one KBS shaft that for me put this on the map in the tour. It was an early one that came out, right? And it had a lot of success early on. And like I say, I think it's the flagship and the OG for KBS.
It is. So when Kim Braley came on and KBS was created in 2008, this was his baby. This was his shaft he created for the company that basically has an even transfer of energy down the shaft is kind of the idea. The steps are all spaced, so the flex is an even called the EI curve. When you start to measure down the shaft, the entire stiffness of the shaft, it's a very even shaft.
But all things you don't need to be intimidated by. That's
no,
important.
That's for me and him to know, not for...
But even though, and that's why I picked these 4, because we've got C-taper that should be your lower launch, stronger player, dependent on where you go with weight, which now you understand. You've got the Tour, which is your entry point if you really are no idea where to go. This is like, if you think about, maybe it's a smaller word, but surfboards, this is your everyday kind of all mountain ski, snowboard
Absolutely.
type thing.
This was in all our shafts in the lineup. This is kind of the 0-0-0 on the scale.
There you go. So that's where you start when you look through. Then we've got the Tour V, which I've actually gone into because just more feel for me. But that was me deciding where I wanted to go. I could feel the head a bit more, maybe don't play as much golf as I used to, like the lighter feel. And then if you're someone who drops way down the scale and just needs speed, then max HL.
And go back when I was fitting you in the video previous, we were kind of deciding between 2 shafts, and one was the money taper shaft in our lineup at 120, and we tried that out, and then we got to the Tour V. The lighter weight is what you started to prefer.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's another great lesson that ego needs to be checked at the door. Weight doesn't just mean, well, you know from this video what it means and what it translates to, but you could move between different ones. And I think just to talk wood shafts here, we have the TD. I think the thing that KBS do, which I like, but it does take a bit of adjusting to as you look at golf shafts, is you list them as categories, not flexes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the categories are a way of separating people from just getting tied into, oh, I'm a stiff flex. You know, you run into the store, you run into one of the big box stores and someone wants to buy the new driver and they run in and go, I'm a stiff flex. Well, we can show you in these 2 shafts, our Max HL 45 and our TD 60 category 3. These would both definitely be considered the stiff flex versions. The difference is this TD 60 gram in our category 3 is a much, much, much stiffer shaft, mostly based on the weight difference. A little bit of profile difference. The Max HL is going to be stiffer in the grip section and very soft in the tip section.
So we know now from the C-taper story, that's going to help you get some height. Should do based on player dependent.
Sure. And the TD is based off of our Tour iron shaft. Remember that we just called that kind of 0-0-0? That's what the TD shaft is. It goes right in line with our KBS Tour iron shaft. It fits kind of in that 0. It's a great starting point through all flexes and all stiffnesses and all weights.
So there you have it. That's why I strongly recommend that you should go through the fitting process, learn about your numbers, leave your ego at the door, and understand that the reason that KBS are listing these things as category is because we're all trying to get you out there to move away from I need to play double X, I need to play X, I need to play this, I need to play that. Not at all. If we can get you thinking a different way so you don't get solely hooked up on these numbers with distance. Yes, distance is key, but how do you get there? You get there by optimizing your numbers, your launch, your apex, your descent angle, and of course, the golf ball you play. Dave, thanks so much, mate.
Thank you.
There are some absolute nuggets in there. Be sure to check everything out in the description below to learn more about Dave, also about the KBS Experience. These golf shafts, we'll put all the detail on the website there. Check it out, and hopefully we'll see you next time.